I'm Chloe, and I used to believe that keeping quiet meant keeping the peace. But when I realized I was paying the entire mortgage while my sister Megan contributed nothing but dog food receipts and smug little shrugs, I snapped. And the fallout, it tore our family wide open. Stick around, this isn't just about money. It's about betrayal, survival, and the kind of revenge that changes everything. Before we dive in, tell me, where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I love knowing where you're tuning in from. The kitchen felt smaller than usual that morning, like the walls were closing in. Maybe it was the cold Virginia rain pattering against the window panes, or maybe it was the rage bubbling up inside me, finally refusing to be swallowed one more time. I didn't even wait for Megan to turn from the counter. I dropped the paycheck stub like a slap on the table between us. It landed next to the bowl of oatmeal she hadn't even made herself. Explain this, I said. Megan, my older sister by 2 years and somehow perpetually 12 in every other way, didn't flinch. She stirred her coffee slowly, took a sip, then raised her eyes, barely. What is it now, Chloe? The mortgage, again. I just paid the full amount. Again, do you even know how much it is? Do you even care? Megan rolled her eyes. Oh my God, you're being dramatic. That word. I don't know what snapped harder, my patience or the vein pulsing in my neck. Dramatic. I repeated, my voice going up 2 octaves. I pay the entire mortgage. I cover utilities, groceries, repairs. And you think I'm being dramatic because I want to know why you only buy dog food every month like it's some noble contribution. She didn't answer. She just lifted her mug and took another sip, like I was some annoying podcast playing too loud. You've got 3 part-time jobs you barely show up for, I continued, stepping closer. And yet you always have cash for concert tickets and your precious shampoo from France, but when it comes to this house, our family home, you vanish. Megan gave a smug little smile and leaned back against the counter. I buy what I can, she said. Not my fault you're addicted to playing martyr. That was it. My voice broke. You think I want this? You think I enjoy working 50 hours a week just to come home and hear you complain about the Wi-Fi? I've been keeping this roof over our heads since Mom got sick, and you walk around here like you're royalty. And you walk around like a victim, she snapped. My jaw clenched. That's rich coming from someone who hasn't paid rent in 2 years. The shouting must have shaken the windows because suddenly our mother appeared in the doorway, wrapped in her worn lavender robe, her eyes squinting from the hallway light. What's going on in here? I turned to her, voice trembling. She's not paying anything, Mom. Nothing. I'm drowning. Megan scoffed. Here we go. I want answers, I yelled louder than I meant to. I want to know why I'm the only one carrying this family like it's some punishment for being the responsible one. Mom's face didn't soften. If anything, it hardened. Don't raise your voice, she said sharply. You're upsetting the whole house. Megan not contributing, I repeated, now desperate for validation. She doesn't even try, Mom sighed. She's doing her best. No, she's not, I said. And you know it. But she only shook her head like I was the one who disrupted the peace, like I was the problem. She's been going through a lot, Mom added, folding her arms. You don't know what that's like. That's when the floor beneath my feet shifted. The betrayal in that moment cut deeper than anything Megan had ever said. I've been going through a lot, too, I whispered. No one said a word. Just the quiet sound of Megan's spoon clinking against her ceramic mug. The silence that followed was so thick it felt like it would choke me. My hands were shaking, and I realized I was still holding the paycheck stub. It was damp now, crushed from my grip. All the hours I'd worked. All the late nights and aching feet. All reduced to a piece of paper no one here respected. I stepped back. The fight wasn't over, but I needed to breathe. I'm done, I said. Mom raised an eyebrow. With what? I stared at them both. With pretending this is okay. Then I turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving behind the scent of coffee, cruelty, and 2 women who somehow believed love didn't include fairness. I spent the rest of the morning locked in my bedroom, staring at the ceiling like it might give me answers. The house was too quiet now. That eerie kind of quiet that follows a storm. Not an apology, not a knock on my door. Just silence. Like I'd been filed away as too emotional and dismissed. I should have been used to it by now. I sat at the edge of my bed, pulled my paycheck stub back out of my pocket and flattened it on my thigh. My name, the hours, the deductions, it was all there in black and white, and it made me angry all over again. But this time the fire didn't make me yell. It made me focus. I opened my journal, the same one where I used to write hopeful little poems when I first moved back home. Today, I used it differently. I started listing everything I paid for. Mortgage, $1,380. Utilities, average $240 a month. Groceries, $400, $600 depending on Megan's appetite. Wi-Fi, insurance, car maintenance, prescriptions for Mom, Megan's emergencies, random house repairs. And Megan buys dog food, not even the expensive kind. I flipped the page, started again. Stolen from me, 2 years of rent from Megan, $16,560. Groceries she never reimbursed, $4,800. Gas money she forgot to return, maybe $900. Her share of bills she never paid, at least $2,400. I wrote the total, $24,660. I stared at that number until it blurred. That night, I took my old laptop, its screen cracked from years of diner shifts and dropped bags, and posted it for sale on a local listing. I added my collection of vintage earrings, the ones Megan always joked looked too mature for someone like me. I skipped dinner, tucked $8 into an envelope labeled gas, and then set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. the next morning. I was back at the diner before sunrise, asking my manager if I could pick up any extra shifts. "You already work the double on Thursdays," he said. "You sure you're okay?" I smiled, the practiced kind. "I could use the hours." He nodded. "I'll see what I can do." I started packing lunches instead of grabbing something between shifts. I canceled my Netflix account. I stopped taking the longer route home just to enjoy the skyline. Every dollar had a destination now. And every morning, Megan moved through the kitchen like nothing had changed. She tapped through Instagram while I measured every penny I'd lost to her laziness. She left wet towels on the bathroom floor while I counted how many months I could rebuild if I stayed this focused. Mom didn't mention the fight, but her coolness was louder than anything she could have said. I would walk in from my shift and find her laughing with Megan over coffee, their conversation abruptly stopping the second I entered the room. I knew that laugh. It was the one I used to hear after dance recitals when Megan had forgot her lines and still got praised for being adorable. Now it was used to dismiss me. Fine, let them laugh. I stopped talking unless absolutely necessary. I stopped trying to please. I gave up the little things I used to do for them without thinking, like leaving Mom's favorite tea in the cabinet or filling the gas tank when I borrowed her car. I became a quiet ghost in my own house. And yet somehow, the house felt heavier with me silent than it ever did when I raised my voice. Late at night, I would lie in bed, counting bills, mapping out my exit. But it wasn't just about leaving. Not anymore. This wasn't about escape, it was about rebalancing, reclaiming what was mine. Bit by bit, I didn't want revenge in flames, I wanted receipts. 2 weeks passed and the house remained a pressure cooker sealed tight. No more shouting, no more questions, just silence. I moved through the rooms like a guest, not a daughter. Megan seemed perfectly content with the arrangement. She even started leaving her dishes in the sink again, as if the storm had passed and I'd gone back to playing housemaid. But I hadn't. I was waiting and watching. Mom's birthday was coming up, and even though I knew better than to expect anything real to change, I decided to extend an olive branch. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe I still craved her approval, some fragment of the mother I used to know, the one who used to braid my hair before school and called me her calm in the chaos. So I cooked. I worked a double at the diner, then came home, kicked off my sneakers, and got right to it. I roasted chicken the way she liked, lemon and rosemary. Made sweet potato casserole with those ridiculous little marshmallows she loved, even though she pretended to be too refined for them. I used the good plates, polished the silverware, cleaned the tablecloth twice. When Megan sauntered into the kitchen, already dressed for the occasion in a coral off-the-shoulder top that she definitely didn't pay for, she raised an eyebrow. "Trying a little hard, aren't we?" I didn't answer. She grabbed a deviled egg off the tray and walked off like it was all her idea. By 6, the family had gathered. Aunt Delia with her overbearing hugs. Uncle Greg, who always forgot I worked at a diner, not a law firm. cousins who looked at their phones more than our faces. They filled the house with laughter and the sound of wine glasses clinking, but none of it reached me. I stayed in the kitchen, plating and serving, refilling cups, smiling like a hostess at a party I hadn't been invited to. Mom sat at the head of the table, wearing her pearls and that glassy smile she used when pretending everything was fine. Megan sat beside her like a hand-picked queen in training. I took the last seat at the far end of the table. Halfway through dinner, someone raised a toast, probably Uncle Greg, and Mom dabbed at the corner of her mouth with a napkin before smiling sweetly at Megan. "You know," she said, her voice rich with performative pride, "I always thought I'd be able to lean on Chloe when I got older. But Megan has been such a surprise. You've grown so much, sweetheart." The table murmured their agreement, forks pausing midair. I froze. Mom tilted her wineglass toward me. "It's not that Chloe isn't helpful, of course," she continued, all sugar and venom, "but Megan has a kind of spirit. She's just so full of life." A quiet laugh from someone down the table. Megan looked down modestly, like she hadn't heard worse about me behind my back. Then came the dagger. "You're not worth half of your sister." The room fell silent. My breath caught. My chest tightened. No one moved. Even the chandelier above us seemed to stop its sway. I stared at her, my mother. The woman I'd paid rent for, worked nights for, cooked this entire meal for. She met my gaze not with cruelty, but with complete indifference. Like I was furniture. I pushed my chair back slowly, stood up, and said clearly, calmly, icily, "Then let her pay half the mortgage." The gasp at the table rippled like wind through dry leaves. Mom's wineglass trembled in her hand. "What did you just say?" she asked. I walked toward the kitchen, untying my apron. "You heard me." And that's when Dad stood up, from the shadows of the hallway where he'd been nursing his second bourbon. "You ungrateful little brat," he snarled. "You don't get to embarrass your mother on her birthday." "She embarrassed me," I replied. "She raised you, fed you, gave you a home. And I've been paying for that home for 2 years," I snapped, louder now. "You think that dinner was free? That mortgage just magically covers itself. I've been holding this place together while Megan plays adult with Monopoly money." Someone dropped a fork. Aunt Delia whispered something to Uncle Greg. Dad's face turned red. "Get out." "What?" "You heard me," he barked. "If you can't respect this house, you don't belong in it." My suitcase was already packed upstairs. I didn't even flinch. "Fine," I said, my voice flat. "I'll go. But don't expect another dollar from me. Not for the lights, not for the food, not for anything." Mom stood but said nothing. Her expression was blank. Megan, she just kept sipping her wine. Dad opened the front door like a dramatic punctuation mark. I walked up the stairs, grabbed my suitcase, and walked back down through a sea of wide-eyed relatives who suddenly didn't have much to say. As I stepped outside, Dad threw my backpack after me, letting it land on the front lawn with a thud. The porch light flickered behind him, and I swear I heard him mutter, "Good riddance." I dragged my suitcase down the sidewalk. My hands were trembling, but not from fear. It was something else, something sharper, like steel hardening. The motel room smelled like bleach and burnt coffee, but it was quiet. Blessedly, bitterly quiet. I sat on the edge of the stiff bed, still in the same jeans I'd worn to dinner. My suitcase sat by the door, unopened. The only light came from a crooked floor lamp, flickering like it couldn't decide whether to die or keep fighting. I knew the feeling. I stared at my phone, then at the hotel receipt I'd just signed with shaking hands. $72.13 for a single night. A room that came with nothing but a thin blanket and thicker regrets. I had nothing left to prove, and everything to reclaim. Tears had already come and gone. The kind that don't make noise, just quietly soak your collar and make your skin feel tight and raw. I was past fury, past heartbreak. What I felt now was something cleaner, colder, clear. I reached into my bag and pulled out the mortgage documents I'd carried since the fight first started. I kept them in a folder labeled "In Case I Snap," half as a joke, half as prophecy. Now I wasn't just snapping, I was severing. My name was on the mortgage, mine alone. When Mom got sick, they begged me to take it over so the house wouldn't fall into foreclosure. I was 23 and naive enough to think that meant I'd earned their respect. Turns out I just signed up to become their unpaid insurance policy. But that signature, that piece of paper, it gave me power. I unlocked my phone and tapped the bank's mobile app. My stomach churned at the thought of what I was about to do, but my fingers moved with purpose. Mortgage services, cancel auto payment. I hesitated just a second. Then tapped confirm, a soft buzz, a green check mark. Payment canceled. I stared at the screen like it might start screaming at me, but nothing happened. The app quietly closed as if to say, "Good girl." I breathed out. Not relief, not yet, but something close to it. Then I picked up the phone and called the bank. A sleepy woman answered after a few rings. "Hello, this is Penelope with Southern Trust Mortgage. How can I assist you tonight?" I introduced myself, gave the loan number. "I need to pause payments on a property I no longer reside in," I said, calm as stone. "There's been a change in occupancy status." "Oh, okay," she said slowly, clearly taken aback by the clarity in my tone. "Are you transferring ownership?" "No," I said, "just withholding payment. I was removed from the household last night by the co-occupants." "That's unusual," Penelope said. "Are you sure you want to initiate a payment hold? This may affect your credit." I smiled grimly. "I've already been affected enough." There was a pause. Then she said, "All right, Ms. Richards, I'll add a note to the account and flag it for review. You may receive a call from our legal team this week." "I'll be waiting for it," I replied. I hung up and placed the phone on the nightstand. That was it. I'd done it. The first real move in a game I never wanted to play. But now that I was in it, I would win. Somewhere out there, Megan was probably raiding the fridge and pretending she hadn't just helped throw her sister to the curb. My parents were likely sipping wine, telling themselves I'd come crawling back. They had no idea the floor had just been pulled out from under them. I looked around the room, peeling wallpaper, a buzzing mini fridge, one towel that smelled like wet dust. It wasn't home. For the first time in years, I could breathe without swallowing resentment. I stood up and walked to the tiny mirror over the sink. My face was blotchy, my eyes swollen. I didn't care. I looked like someone who had stopped begging to be loved and started demanding to be respected. And that version of me, she was just getting started. By noon the next day, the texts began, first from Megan. "Chloe, did you forget to pay the mortgage? The bank just called me. They said we're flagged as unpaid." I stared at the message while sipping motel coffee so bitter it could strip paint. She didn't even ask if I was okay. Didn't say she was sorry for what happened the night before. She wanted damage control. 5 minutes later, another buzz. "Hello, are you seriously ignoring me right now?" Then, almost comically, "Call me back, this is serious." Then came Mom. "We need to talk. Your father and I just heard from the bank. I don't know what kind of stunt this is, but you're putting us all at risk. You need to fix this immediately." And finally, Dad. "You think you're punishing us, you're hurting yourself. Grow up and take responsibility before this goes on your credit." "No, we're sorry." "No, how are you?" Just threats disguised as concern. Accusations dressed up as parental wisdom. I muted the group chat. I didn't delete it. I wanted to see exactly how fast the panic spread. Because now, finally, they had something to lose. Around 3:30 p.m., Megan left a voicemail. Her voice was higher than usual, that tight, panicked edge she got when things slipped beyond her control. "Hey, Chloe, okay, look, I don't know what's going on, but the bank says we're going to get a penalty fee if the payment isn't submitted by Friday. I thought maybe you were just mad about last night, but come on. This is serious. This is Mom and Dad's house, too." Pause. "I mean, technically it's your name on the loan, but like that affects all of us, right?" She was trying to sound calm. Logical. Like we were partners, I didn't respond. She sent another message an hour later, all lowercase now. "I don't know why you're doing this, you're really scaring Mom." And then another, just a single line, "You're not like this." I almost laughed. They didn't know what like this even meant. Because for years I'd been agreeable, forgiving, silent. I had bent so far backward for them that I could have tied my shoelaces with my teeth. And still, they'd wanted more. But now I was done being digestible. By sundown, Dad left a voicemail that made the motel walls feel smaller. "You're being spiteful, Chloe. I don't know what kind of mess Maya's been putting in your head, but this ends now. You're not going to bankrupt your own family to prove a point." But the truth was, I wasn't proving a point. I was protecting an investment. Me. All those years of working overtime at the diner, of skipping dinners to make payments, of covering Megan's forgotten bills and Mom's prescriptions. They weren't selfless acts. They were seeds. And if they thought they could strip my name from the harvest now, they were in for a drought. That night I walked to the nearest diner, not the one where I worked, and sat in a vinyl booth under fluorescent lights that buzzed like gossip. I ordered scrambled eggs and dry toast because they were cheap and because it felt symbolic somehow. Starting over. Halfway through my plate, I glanced at my phone again. The messages had taken a darker turn. You have no idea what you've done. If we default, it'll be your fault. You're sick, you need help. The last one made my throat tighten just a little, because when someone calls you sick for setting boundaries, what they really mean is you're no longer easy to exploit. I set my phone face down and stared out the diner window. Cars passed. A teenager balanced a skateboard on the sidewalk. A mother loaded groceries into a minivan. The world, remarkably, didn't stop because my family was unraveling. Neither would I when the check came. I counted the bills carefully, leaving just enough tip to say, I'm still kind. Even now, I wanted to believe I hadn't hardened completely. But as I stepped back into the cool night air, I knew something inside me had shifted forever. Because when someone finally stops being the giver, those who have only taken see it as an attack. And I was done apologizing for defending my own worth. The knock came just before 9 a.m. 3 soft taps on the motel door. I hesitated. My first thought, Megan, or worse, Dad. I imagined them out there with their angry voices and performative concern, waiting to drag me into another guilt trip theater production. But when I looked through the peephole, it wasn't either of them. It was Aunt Rochelle. Her with her wide-brim hat, suede boots, and a face that always looked like it knew too much but never said a word unless it mattered. She smiled when I opened the door, not wide, not forced, just real. Come on, she said, holding out a thermos. Let's get you out of this bleach box. I followed without asking questions. We drove in silence most of the way to Richmond, her classic RAV4 humming down Route 60 like it had done this 1,000 times. She didn't ask about the fight. She didn't pry. Just handed me that thermos, which turned out to be the perfect hazelnut latte, and turned up the volume on a jazz station when the silence got too heavy. We pulled into her driveway just past noon. It was a modest townhouse, tan brick with maroon shutters and flower pots lining the front steps. Cozy in the way that felt intentional, lived in, safe. You'll take the guest room upstairs, she said, unlocking the front door. It gets the best light. Inside smelled like sandalwood and lemon polish. There were old photo frames on the hallway shelf, a coat rack full of scarves, a record player spinning something mellow in the living room. This wasn't just shelter. It was sanctuary. I dropped my bag by the stairs and stood still for a second, like my body couldn't quite compute what it meant to land somewhere that wasn't emotionally booby-trapped. She glanced at me, her voice softer now. Chloe, you're not crazy. I've seen it too. I looked at her, startled. She shrugged off her coat. The way they treat you, I noticed it years ago. Then why didn't you say anything? I whispered. Her eyes met mine, steady and unflinching. Because you weren't ready to hear it. You were still trying to earn what they should have given freely. That broke me. Tears hit before I could stop them, silent, sharp, and angry at myself more than anyone else. She didn't hug me. Didn't do the thing where people try to wrap you up like a Band-Aid. She just handed me a tissue and poured a second cup of coffee. Later, she made us tuna melts with pickles on the side and told me about her garden club's drama like it was the most pressing thing in the world. It wasn't avoidance. It was grace. She gave me room to breathe before asking me to unpack it all. That night I slept, actually slept. Not the kind where your body is still and your brain paces. The real kind, dreamless, quiet, in a soft bed with clean sheets and no tension clinging to the corners of the room. The next morning I opened my eyes to sunlight and the sound of Rochelle humming to herself downstairs. She had already set a place for me at the kitchen table. Toast, eggs, grapefruit slices in a floral bowl. There was a note next to my plate. You've got 24 years of overfunctioning to undo. Start with breakfast. I laughed out loud, my first real laugh in days. By afternoon, I had turned off all the notifications on my phone. I didn't need to know what threats Megan was inventing or what insults Dad had laced into his latest voicemail. Let them stew in the consequences of their own entitlement. For now, I was busy remembering how it felt to simply exist. Rochelle sat across from me with a second latte and her sleeves rolled up. "You've always been the fixer," she said. "The one who smooths things over, picks up the slack. It's no wonder they think you're the villain now." "They're calling me selfish," I said, "like I'm ruining everything." She smirked. "Good, let them sit in the mess they created. But they're family. So are the people who choose you, Chloe. Blood isn't currency, and it sure as hell isn't a blank check." I didn't respond. I just sipped my coffee and stared at the oak tree outside her kitchen window. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't bracing for the next blow. I was resting. 2 days into my quiet exile in Aunt Rochelle's townhouse, the storm went digital. It started with a Facebook post from Megan. Not a message, not a text. A full-blown, glittery-fonted public declaration of betrayal. "Family is supposed to be forever. But I guess some people would rather see you homeless than help you during hard times. Prayers appreciated." Below it, a carousel of photos, her and Mom baking, her walking the dog, even one of all of us at Christmas 3 years ago cropped neatly to cut out the tension and truth. I stared at the screen, my eggs gone cold on the plate. Rochelle leaned over my shoulder, saw the post, and didn't even blink. "Passive-aggressive and poorly punctuated," she muttered, sipping her coffee. "Impressive." I didn't comment, I didn't react, but I took screenshots, all of them. Over the next few hours, it spiraled. Cousin Bree replied under the post with a vague, "Hope you're okay, girl," followed by 5 broken heart emojis. Aunt Diane commented, "Call me," which probably meant she'd already gotten an earful from Mom. But what surprised me most, the private messages. They started trickling in quietly, like secret handshakes in a high school hallway. "Hey, Chloe. Just wanted you to know I saw the post. I don't know the whole story, but I've always admired how hard you work. Cousin Mariah, it doesn't surprise me, honestly. The way they've treated you since your 20s. I'm glad you're standing up for yourself. Uncle Tim somewhere short, just thinking of you, or you okay?" But they felt like tiny digital candles in a blackout. I didn't reply to any of them. Not because I wasn't grateful, but because I was learning the power of restraint. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to defend myself or explain away someone else's behavior. Let them talk. Let them speculate. I was done playing narrator in a story where I'd always been cast as the antagonist. Later that afternoon, Megan posted again. This one was sharper, less sugar-coated. "I don't know how someone can sleep at night after abandoning their own family, especially when they're the one who ruined everything in the first place." She knew what she was doing. And I knew she expected a reaction, but I didn't give it. Instead, I opened a new folder on my phone. Screenshots legal. Every post, every comment, every twisted retelling of events. I saved them all, not to use as a weapon, but as a mirror. Because eventually, people reveal themselves loud enough for the whole world to hear. That night, Rochelle and I ate dinner in the living room, lasagna and garlic bread, with jazz humming low in the background. Windows were open, letting in the late summer breeze. "I saw Megan's latest post," she said between bites. "You okay?" "I'm fine," she nodded. "Your silence is really messing with them." I smiled faintly. "Good." Rochelle leaned back in her chair, studying me. "You know," she said, "every woman in this family has reached a point where she had to decide, be the peacekeeper or be free. Did you ever choose peacekeeper?" "For a while, but I learned something." "What?" "Peace that costs you your self-worth isn't peace. It's quiet abuse." That stuck with me. As the evening settled in, I curled up on the couch with a fleece blanket and my laptop. I didn't post anything. I didn't clap back, but I watched. And in the watching, I began to understand something important. When you stop defending yourself, you give other people the space to reveal what they really believe. Some showed up. Others stayed silent. A few, like Megan, dug their holes deeper with every angry keystroke. Let them, because the truth. I wasn't hiding. I was documenting. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, certified mail. My full name printed in bold typeface with the kind of seriousness usually reserved for jury duty or final notices. I found it on the front step of Rochelle's townhouse one humid Thursday morning, wedged between a box of herbal tea and the daily paper. No return address, just wait, the emotional kind. I stared at it for a full minute before picking it up. Rochelle walked out behind me, her robe tied loosely, a spoon in her cereal. She glanced at the envelope, then at my face. Want me to burn it for you? I almost said yes. Almost handed it over and let her toss it into the garden fire pit with last week's dry leaves and this week's bitterness. But I was too curious. Back inside, I sat at the kitchen table, sliding my finger under the seal like it might bite. The letter inside had the sterile chill of something written by someone trying to sound important. From Law Offices of Spencer and Hale. On behalf of Thomas and Sandra Richards. R.E. Mortgage abandonment, emotional distress, and civil grievance. I didn't breathe. I read it again, slower this time. In short, my parents were threatening to sue me for intentionally withdrawing mortgage support and causing irreparable emotional harm. They cited malicious intent, financial sabotage, and a line so absurd I had to read it out loud. Undermining the stability of a multi-generational family structure through unilateral financial withdrawal. Rochelle blinked. Did they just try to make you sound like a corporate raider? I laughed, but it wasn't joy. It was disbelief. A laugh that started in my throat and hit the table like a dropped glass. I think they're trying to scare me, I said, voice trembling. Rochelle took the papers, flipped through them with a seasoned eye. It's fluff, she said. No real legal standing, no breach of contract, no proof of obligation. But they sent a lawyer. They found a mailbox with a diploma taped to the door. Relax. This is desperation in envelope form. Still, I couldn't help the knot tightening in my stomach. A lifetime of conditioning doesn't unravel overnight. Even reading their names, Thomas and Sandra Richards, at the top of a legal threat made something in me fold inward, like I was 6 years old again and being scolded for talking back. Rochelle noticed. She reached across the table, steady hand over mine. I know it feels big, she said softly, but that's just fear talking, and fear can't hold up in court. She stood up, her expression suddenly sharper. Come on, we're calling someone. Within the hour, I was sitting in the home office of Rochelle's friend, Ms. Lena Wallace, a lawyer with salt and pepper curls, bold lipstick, and zero patience for nonsense. She read the letter twice, didn't blink once. When she finally looked up, she said, "This wouldn't make it past small claims court, and even there it would be laughed out of the building. But they're trying to say I abandoned them. You didn't. You removed yourself from a toxic living arrangement after being forcibly ejected from the property. You acted responsibly. You even notified the bank. There is no written contract obligating you to financially support adults who refuse to contribute. You're not their bank. You're not their fallback plan. You're their daughter, not their doormat." I stared at her. "You sure?" She raised an eyebrow. "I wouldn't waste my time if I was." That night, I lay awake in Rochelle's guest room, holding the letter in one hand and Lena's business card in the other. The panic had passed. What remained wasn't rage or even sadness. It was confirmation. They didn't want me back. They wanted what I gave them. And now that it was gone, they were willing to weaponize guilt in any form, including the legal system, to try to steal it back. But for the first time in a long time, I had someone in my corner. And that changed everything. My grandmother called just after sunrise. I hadn't heard her voice in months. Not since Thanksgiving, when she pulled me aside after dinner and whispered, "Be careful what you carry, baby. Not everything that breaks was yours to hold." I almost didn't answer, but something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe hope, pressed the green button. "Chloe," she said, her voice low, steady, and as familiar as soft bread and hot tea. "Hi, Nana." There was a long pause. Then, finally, "You were right to walk away." My throat closed. Of all the things I'd braced for, anger, disappointment, another plea to be the bigger person, this wasn't one of them. "You don't think I abandoned them?" I asked, barely a whisper. She scoffed, a sound I knew well. "Abandoned, honey, you were thrown out, with your suitcase and your pride still intact. I saw the video your cousin posted. They should be ashamed." I blinked. "Wait, you saw it?" "Oh, don't act surprised. You think anything happens in this family without getting passed around like peach cobbler at a potluck." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in days. Then she said, softer now, "You know I love my daughter, but love doesn't mean blindness, and I've seen the way they tilt the scales when it comes to you and Megan. I always thought I was imagining it. No, baby, you were surviving it." That line stuck to my ribs. We talked for 15 more minutes about her garden. about how her neighbor's cat kept leaving dead mice on her porch, like some sort of mafia offering. But mostly, we talked like equals, like women who had both learned the hard way that silence isn't always peace. Before we hung up, she said, "You don't owe them your ruin, remember that." I promised I would. That day, I took a long walk through Richmond's Fan District, past row houses with wraparound porches and crooked flower boxes. The air smelled like rain on hot pavement. For once, my mind wasn't racing, just breathing. But peace never lasts long when chaos is unemployed. That night, Rochelle handed me her phone with an arched brow. "She called the landline," she said. "I let it go to voicemail." I pressed play. Megan, her voice was raw, wobbly. No filters or hashtags this time. "Chloe, I don't know what to do. The bank's calling again. Dad won't talk to me. Mom's crying in the bathroom. I didn't think it would go this far. I thought you were just mad." I didn't know you'd actually cut it off. Pause, a shaky inhale. "I don't have the money. I don't know how to fix it. Please, just talk to me, please." She hung up without saying goodbye. I stared at the phone, unmoved. "Are you going to call her back?" Rochelle asked. "No," she nodded. "Good." I sat by the window that night, the city humming softly around me. For years, I would have leapt at that voicemail, rushed to fix what she broke. But now I understood something crucial. Megan wasn't crying for me. She was crying for her comfort. And comfort was no longer my debt to pay. The sheriff showed up just after 8 a.m. The neighborhood was already awake. Lawns being watered, dogs being walked, morning joggers nodding to each other like every day was predictable. But not today. Not at 146 Spruce Lane. Not at the house where they told me to leave, suitcase in hand and dignity trailing behind me. A white moving truck rumbled up behind the patrol car, followed by a tan sedan from the bank. It all looked official. Cold. I imagined Megan still in her pajamas, eyes puffy from another night of crying into entitlement. The sheriff knocked hard. 3 firm raps. My phone buzzed seconds later. "Mom, 4 missed calls, Megan. Chloe, please, they're here. The sheriff is here." "Dad, you did this. You can still undo it." I didn't answer. I sat in Rochelle's guest room, calm as a lake, sipping tea while the house that swallowed my kindness for years was being swallowed by justice. A cousin texted me a blurry photo from across the street. Megan on the porch, yelling into the sheriff's face. Her robe askew, her hands flailing. Behind her, Dad stood stunned, arms crossed, jaw tight. And Mom, she was slumped in a patio chair, head in her hands like the eviction notice had been personally handwritten by betrayal. Another message came through. "Mom, this isn't right. We took you in. We gave you everything." I stared at the words, read them 3 times, then calmly picked up the phone and called back. She answered immediately, voice breathless, already crying. "Chloe, thank God. You have to stop this. They're putting everything on the lawn. Our things are our lives." I waited for the silence to settle, then said slowly, clearly, "You kicked me out. Now the house did the same to you." There was a pause, then a wail. I hung up. No screaming, no drama. Just symmetry. Down the street from them, neighbors gathered in quiet clusters, some whispering, others wide-eyed. The house with the painted shutters and long history of whispered tension was finally being aired out. Literally. Furniture spilled onto the lawn. Boxes, baskets, bags, my childhood bed frame. The yellow curtains from the guest room. The old photo albums Mom said were too precious to digitize. All of it now watched by people who used to wave politely from their porches. I didn't go. I didn't need to. The house was no longer mine to rescue, and I wasn't theirs to shame into silence. Around noon, Rochelle knocked gently on my door. "Want lunch?" I nodded. We ate tomato soup and grilled cheese with a side of soft music and softer conversation. No mention of Megan's screams or Mom's sobs, just the warm clink of spoons against ceramic. And in that quiet, I found something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Because closure doesn't always come with apologies. Sometimes it shows up in a sheriff's badge and a moving truck. The park was too pretty for what was about to happen. Golden leaves drifted down from the trees like confetti at the wrong kind of celebration. A few kids giggled near the swings. Joggers passed with earbuds in, completely unaware that beneath the oaks and next to the duck pond, a quiet reckoning was about to unfold. I had chosen this place on purpose. Neutral ground. Open space. and public enough that no one could scream without an audience. They were already there when I arrived. Mom sat on a bench, dabbing her eyes with a tissue like it might win her sympathy points. Dad stood stiffly beside her, arms crossed, scanning the area like he was expecting backup. Megan lingered in the background, sunglasses on, looking anywhere but at me. And then there was my cousin Isaiah holding his phone, not obviously but deliberately, recording, documenting. I didn't ask him to, he just knew. I walked toward them slowly, my boots crunching against the early fallen leaves. Rochelle had offered to come with me, but I told her no. This part I had to do alone. When I got close enough, Mom stood. Her hands shook. "Chloe," she whispered, voice trembling like I was still the daughter she could guilt into obedience. Dad cleared his throat, then fell to his knees. No warning. Just dropped to the ground, arms hanging limp at his sides like the weight of it all had finally crushed him. And then Mom followed. On their knees, in the middle of a public park. Crying, begging, the sight might have cracked me once. But now I felt nothing but steel in my spine. Dad looked up, eyes glassy. "Please, Chloe, just tell the bank it was a misunderstanding. Help us fix it. We can go back." Mom reached for my hand. "I've been sick with guilt. We didn't mean for things to go so far." I pulled my hand back. Megan stood behind them, her arms folded, her jaw clenched, still waiting for me to rescue her, still expecting me to blink first. "Go back," I repeated. My voice was calm, measured. "Back to what?" Dad flinched. "To being a family," I laughed softly. "A family? You mean the people who threw me out, lied about me online, tried to sue me?" Mom sobbed. "I just wanted us to be close again." "No," I said. "You wanted me to stay useful. That's not the same as love." From the corner of my eye, I saw Isaiah lower his phone slightly, then raise it again. No one was interrupting. Dad was still kneeling. "I was angry. I didn't mean it. I lost my temper." I looked at him. "I lost my home," I said, "and none of you cared until you lost yours." They said nothing, just tears, just sniffling and silent pleas. I stepped back just one pace, just enough to give my voice a little more room. "Respect isn't free," I said, "and you've now paid part of the cost." Then I turned. Megan opened her mouth, maybe to stop me, maybe to apologize, but she said nothing. Just stood there in the shadows of the parents who had always stood in front of her, shielding her from consequences. I walked away. I didn't run, didn't flinch. I walked steady and certain as the leaves continued to fall and the sobbing faded behind me. Somewhere behind me a camera stopped recording. But the truth, the real recording had already happened. In my memory, in my spine, in every long night I spent believing I wasn't enough. Now I didn't need their forgiveness. They needed mine. And they weren't getting it. The thing about peace is it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show up with fireworks or a final bow. It creeps in, quiet and steady, like the scent of something baking, faint at first, then suddenly it's everywhere. Soft, real. That's how it felt the morning Rochelle looked up from her kitchen table and said, "What if we catered weddings?" I blinked. "Weddings?" She sipped her coffee. "I've got recipes, you've got a work ethic that scares the average mortal, and between us, we could run circles around any cookie-cutter catering company in Richmond." I laughed. "You're serious?" "Deadly." And just like that, we began. We started small, birthday brunches, office parties, one baby shower where the client insisted on a menu of only pink food. Rochelle handled the recipes. I handled the planning, the spreadsheets, the marketing. We called it Salt plus Grace because that's what we'd survived on. Every event felt like another stitch in the life I was quietly rebuilding. I wasn't just working, I was valued. People thanked me, paid me, respected my time. It felt so foreign, I caught myself apologizing out of habit during our first client meeting. But Rochelle gave me a look and said, "Stop that." So I did. Meanwhile, across town, my parents had moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a dull brick complex near the highway. I didn't go there, but I saw glimpses, through whispers, through social media, through a cousin who worked at the pharmacy down the street. They clipped coupons now. They packed lunches. They finally understood that budgets weren't optional. And Megan got a job, a full-time one. No more buying dog food as her sole contribution to the household. No more spa days at my expense. She posted a selfie in a work polo shirt with the caption, "Starting a new chapter." Briefcase sparkles like it was a lifestyle choice, not a necessity. I didn't comment, didn't even screenshot it. Some growth didn't need my attention. I was too busy planning our first wedding event, an outdoor reception with string lights, champagne flutes, and a bride who cried over the lemon lavender cupcakes I plated with surgical precision. After the last guest left, Rochelle and I sat on the venue steps with aching feet and glowing skin. "You built this," she said, handing me a cider. "No," I replied. "We did," she smiled. "You know, there was a time I thought I'd never get out from under my family's shadow either, but then I realized something." "What's that?" "Freedom doesn't come from proving your worth. It comes from living like it's already known." That night, I lay in bed with sore legs and a full heart. Not because I'd won some battle, but because I no longer needed to fight. My family was learning how to survive without me, and I was finally learning how to thrive without them. A year later, I turned the key in the lock and stepped into my apartment. Not borrowed, not temporary, not someone's spare room. Mine, downtown Richmond, third-floor walk-up, exposed brick wall in the kitchen, mismatched hardwood floors that creaked in all the right places. The lease had my name, only mine, and the moment I signed it, something uncoiled in my chest. Like a knot that had been pulled tight for a decade had finally loosened its grip. I spent the first night sitting on the floor with a cheap lamp, a slice of pizza, and a second-hand record player that skipped halfway through Fleetwood Mac. The walls were bare, the shelves still empty, but it felt more luxurious than anything I'd known in years. Freedom has a smell, a sound, a texture. Mine smelled like lemon oil and old wood, sounded like my own laugh echoing in a room that held no expectations, felt like warm socks and no one watching. Over the next week, I made it home. A yellow thrift store couch with a patch sewn into one cushion. A kitchen table Rochelle helped me refinish. Plants I named after women who chose themselves. Nora, Simone Otter. I didn't need much, just peace, and space, and proof. Proof that I could build something better without begging anyone to believe I deserved it. When Nana visited, she brought a basket of biscuits and a hand-crocheted blanket. She walked through each room slowly, like it was a gallery exhibit. At the kitchen window, she paused. "You look like someone who owns her own story now," I smiled. "Because I finally do." We sat on the balcony with mugs of sweet tea and no rush to be anywhere else. "Your mother called me last week," she said gently. "It's to know if you'll ever speak to her again." I looked out at the city lights. "She doesn't miss me, she misses control." Nana didn't argue. Instead, she patted my hand. "You don't owe her an answer today or ever." We talked about everything and nothing after that. About how Megan was still working that job, still posting like it was a brand campaign. About how Dad had started walking early in the mornings as if movement might chase away regret. I didn't feel angry anymore, just distant. Like remembering a storm through a closed window. By the time Nana left, the sun was dipping behind the skyline. I stood in the doorway and watched her drive away, feeling something I hadn't in years. Safe. Safe in my space, in my choices, in myself. And when I closed the door, it echoed not with finality, but with arrival. Not survival. Not revenge. Arrival. If you've ever walked away from a life that didn't love you back, if you've ever rebuilt from nothing but stubbornness and truth, this story was for you. Let me know what part of Chloe's journey hit hardest. And if you're still walking your own road to freedom, keep going. The view gets better. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share if this series meant something to you. And remember, owning your story isn't just powerful, it's yours.